This is Jamie Markley, and you're listening to News Talk 550 KTSA and FM 1071. Stay connected.
It's just absurd what they're doing, and it's endangering people, and people are dying as a consequence of open borders. They're dying as a consequence of tyrannical policies on vaccine mandates and mask mandates and lockdowns, and they're dying as a result of their quest for unicorn energy policies that are disarming our country.
Well, and in just a second, Chip Roy, that's the last time we talked. Chip Roy and I are going to talk about the CDC and of course, high gasoline prices, the top story of the day and should be the top story of the day. Let's welcome him back to the KTSA Stevens Roofing Newsmaker Hotline. Trey Ware here, and Chip, great to have you back on, man.
Well, Trey, great to be on with you. I wish it were in better circumstances than what we're seeing unfold right now, the current leadership of this country, but we're out here fighting for you. So.
Yeah, I know that, and I was proud to vote for you last Tuesday, and you got her done and got her won. And looky here. You know, I remember the days when Obama called it the okie doke, and over in Harris County, there's a little okie doke being played over there because between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m., they found a bunch of about 10,000 mail-in ballots. And Chip, I got to tell you, the mail-in balloting thing. My view on mail-in balloting is that if you're serving our nation on a foreign land, good. If you can't even wiggle, if you're so bedridden here that you can't even wiggle your toe, fine. We'll send somebody over to look at your ID, and you can cast a ballot by mail. Otherwise, guess what? Get up out of bed and go to the polls, because this is how Democrats are going to cheat. And coming up in November, the red wave, or whatever you want to call it, has to be so overwhelming that we overpower their okey doke. However they're going to try to mess around with these mail-in ballots, we need to overpower it and win, win, win.
Well, this whole thing personifies the current Democrat Party, right? What's up is down. What's down is up.
Yes.
And it's on every single issue, okay? So let's take election issues. Mail-in ballots have been known on a bipartisan basis to be the most difficult to ensure the integrity of the vote. We've known this for decades. Bipartisan commissions, Jim Baker, and it's just something we've known. And then now it's like, oh, no, because there was this virus, we're going to upend all things that we know are common sense. And we're going to say mail-in ballots for weeks on end. And, of course, you end up with a situation like this where you've got 10,000 ballots just sitting there, just happen to be sitting there in Harris County. We've got to take back control of our elections. You vote on Election Day. This is not hard stuff, people. You show up, you vote, you count the votes. And you make exceptions for the very, very small few who can't be there, like you just described, the people out there fighting for us, the truly infirm who are trying to do their civic duty. And that's the way we've done it for years. But no. The Democrats want to turn it on its head, just like they're doing with energy, just like they're doing with the vaccine mandates, just like they're doing with how we're handling Iran and our national security policy. They're literally turning everything upside down, and it's purposeful, Trey. That's what I want the listeners out there to hear. It's purposeful. Democrats are trying to turn our country upside down.
Yeah, and so that leads us into the energy thing. I'll get to the CDC and your questions about the CDC in a second, but let's talk about energy, because this is the thing that's hitting everybody right now. When you're talking about in California, they're paying $7. I came by over $5 in Texas for diesel, and well into the $4s now for regular gasoline here in Texas. And Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris come out yesterday and said, well, yeah, that's kind of the way it is, and it's the way it's going to be, so you might as well get ready for that. We're transitioning off of oil. Go get on an electric bus and ride around on an electric bus, Chip. That's exactly what she said yesterday.
No, but again, this is precisely what they want.
Yes.
When you hear Nancy Pelosi go to the podium and say, yeah, let's ban Russian oil, when you hear any other Democrat out there doing it, we've had multiple Democratic politicians have been stepping to the mic saying, I want to end Russian oil. That's not from the goodness of their heart to try to go help Ukrainians. That's not to try to stick it to Putin. I'm telling you, it's purposeful because they want you to be paying $4, $5, $6, $8 a gallon, $10 a gallon for gas, so that you'll feel compelled to go get an electric car. Never mind how much that costs you. Never mind what that means in terms of batteries. Never mind that you can only drive 250 miles. Never mind that we still need to power all those things. Never mind that China has 1,100 coal-fired plants, 50 in the pipeline. We only have 250, and we haven't built a nuclear plant without massive permitting for the last 45 years. I mean, it's extraordinary what we're allowing Democrats to do to our country. But every listener out there needs to know it's purposeful. Don't allow the Ukrainian situation, which makes our heart bleed for people getting, destroyed by Putin. Don't let that be a shiny object that distracts you from what Democrats are trying to do.
Right, exactly. They were doing this before, and they're going to continue to do it afterwards, and they're not going to change what they're doing. We have to change. We have to make an enormous change in November. Now, we know all through the pandemic, and you and I have talked about this before, they were lying to us. And look at this. It's day number 13 that we haven't seen hide nor hair of the Fauci. Where is Anthony Fauci anyway? But we know that the CDC was fudging the numbers, playing around, and lying to us throughout the deal. And now Chip Roy is demanding some answers. What's up with that?
Well, look, the CDC doesn't want to give us information, right? There's information that we'd like to see about what exactly was going on with respect to the vaccinated and the unvaccinated population, and then what was the result of that data. They're not showing it to us. I'm, of course, demanding that with a letter to the CDC. I'm going out and talking about this on the media because I want the American people to understand they are trying to hide something, okay? Now, Trey, I've talked about this. My dad had polio. I think vaccines are a very important part of the whole mix of how we handle infectious diseases, but I think it ought to be up to people. I think we ought to be studying these things, and I do not believe the government, particularly the federal government, ought to be mandating jabs. And what we've seen here is potentially one of the most gross abuses of government power in the history of mankind, and particularly in our country, with what we're seeing with the lack of transparency and information out of our supposed national health care leaders in the NIH and the CDC without giving us the information necessary to make the determinations of what impact the vaccines have actually had on the population, both positive and negative. There are positives, I will grant you. There are negatives, I will grant you. We need transparency to see all of that because I want to know the impact. I know you do too, and every American deserves that. But the CDC wants to hide it. Well, we're not going to let them get away with it. We're going to keep the spotlight on them. It may take till next January to get the truth, but we're going to spend the next 9 months trying.
Okay, I'm going to let you go in a second, but over in Florida, they just announced yesterday, I think DeSantis is doing a great job. They announced over in Florida that they're not recommending the vaccine for children, period, full stop. That they're the first in the nation to say we're not recommending the vaccine for children because we just don't know. Based on, like what you just said, we just don't know. Why do you think they're playing hide the ball on this one?
Well, I think they're playing hide the ball because I think there's data that indicates very clearly that vaccines are not necessary for people that are not vulnerable and, in fact, are harmful. Okay? I'm just going to go ahead and say that. I think that data exists. I don't think they want you to know it because I think they know that they've now been caught hiding the ball and that there's been a negative impact on people. Instead of just putting this stuff out there and saying to everybody, look, we're doing the best we can, here's what we recommend, they're trying to control all this. Now let's go follow the liability on this, Trey, right? The government said, oh, we're an emergency use. So you pharma companies, you're not liable. All right, well, who is liable now? Is it the insurance companies that have been starting to mandate this stuff? Is it the private people that were mandating this stuff because the government was telling them they had to? But somebody needs to be liable when someone gets sick and dies because of a mandated jab in their arm. So we got to continue to pursue the facts on this. And Ron DeSantis is exactly right, and Florida is exactly right. We should not have any way, shape, or form any jabs going into the arms of our young children. They statistically don't need it. It's more risky to get the jab than to live without the jab in this current environment. And it's just insane that we're doing this to our kids, masking our kids, sticking a needle in their arm. It's criminal what the teachers' unions and the leftist establishment is doing to our kids. And Republicans better fight for them. We shouldn't vote to fund a government this week again that mandates vaccines. We shouldn't vote to fund a government that doesn't open up energy. We shouldn't vote to fund a government that leaves our borders wide open. But yet most of my Republican colleagues are going to be like, oh, well, we've got to. They've got us over the barrel, Chip, and we've got to send more stingers. We've got to send more stuff over to Ukraine. Okay, so you're going to continue to allow the American people to get rolled over by a bunch of leftists who want to take over their lives. And you're not going to stand up and force a fight with the only tool you have in your arsenal, which is the power of the purse. I'm going to keep holding their feet to the fire, Trey.
Great job, man. Go get them, and I'll talk to you again soon.
God bless.
You too. That's Chip Roy, Congressman Chip Roy, District 21. Great to hear from him this morning.